You're just upset
Me
that
and
your
you are
dad
fighting.
Can't stand you and
I'm
my
not
dad has
upset.
my back. You are, that's all that
I'm not
was.
upset.
My dad put
Me
his
and you
arms
are
around
fighting.
you again.
Whatever
What are you gonna
happens
do about it?
between us
My dad would put his arms around you again. What are you going to do about it?
No one
What are you
else.
going to do about it? Tell me. What
No
you done
one
to his
else
hand
can
back?
touch
Tell
me.
me.
Conor Benn has boldly vowed to bring serious harm to Chris Eubank Jr. in their upcoming fight, intensifying the tension ahead of the showdown. The feud between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. has only intensified over the years. Despite Conor Benn being cleared of the drug allegations, a fact he continually emphasizes, Chris Eubank Jr. remains steadfast in his refusal to let go of the past accusations. In a recent show, broadcaster Piers Morgan even stepped in, highlighting Benn's exoneration and urging Eubank Jr. to accept the truth.
But the reality is that all the interrogatory investigatory bodies have cleared him to fight in this fight with you. So you might think he's a cheat, and you're perfectly entitled to your view. But the reality is, if he was a convicted cheat, he wouldn't be able to fight you. So do you accept that for the purposes of your fight, that he's not a convicted cheat? He's someone that you might think he is, but he's not been convicted of that.
Unfazed by the comments and the perceived foolishness of his stance, Chris Eubank Jr. continues to deny that Conor Benn has been cleared. Instead, he stubbornly sticks to his criticism, repeatedly making the same argument, something Conor Benn finds pathetic, despite stressing that Benn was never convicted and that the substances found were a mistake. With prominent organizations now clearing him, Eubank Jr. has yet to open his eyes and muster the courage to admit the truth.
Whether he's been convicted or not is irrelevant. The fact is, substances were found in his system. You know, there have been thousands of fighters that have been popped for performance-enhancing drugs.
And been banned.
And been banned.
And been banned.
Or been fined.
Every single one.
Or...
I've not received a fine. I've been cleared by 3 organisations, by the NADP, the WBC, UCAD, no ban, cleared to fight, no fine.
Not good
That's
enough.
what I've done. I don't care if it's good
But
enough.
that is true, whether you like it or not. That is the truth of where we are.
That very
If that's
may
your
well
argument,
be.
you need to do better. It's a pathetic argument.
The tension escalated further as Chris Eubank Jr. didn't hold back from attacking Conor Benn on a personal level. Mocking Benn for his past drug test failure, Eubank listed him alongside other fighters who had failed, continuing his relentless criticism. He even went so far as to accuse Conor of spending millions to clear his name, an accusation that Conor found deeply personal and utterly idiotic coming from Eubank.
Fighters, even now, in boxing today, that have failed drugs tests, they've been fined or served bans, and then they've been let back into the ring. This is in no way different. He got caught. He went out of boxing for a little bit, spent $1 million trying to clear his name.
You know what? That's why you're an idiot.
No,
because I've been cleared by 3 organisations,
I don't care.
by people who are a lot smarter than you.
Was there drugs in your system?
This is you talking personally.
Was there drugs in your system?
In response, Chris Eubank Jr. insisted that it's a fighter's responsibility to carefully monitor what they eat and drink, criticizing Conor Benn's lack of seriousness that led to his drug test failure. Regarding the upcoming fight, Eubank emphasized that stepping into the ring has been a long-standing tradition, and whether Conor's actions were intentional or not, he is still guilty. According to Chris, Conor now needs to make an example of himself.
Failed drugs tests and appear back in the ring. It's happened 1 million times before, and it will happen 1 million times again. This is what's happened with Conor. Whether he is innocent of not knowing that how the drugs got in his system, you're still guilty.
Do you accept that can happen?
Because
do you accept that can
as a
happen?
fighter, it is your job to know everything you are eating, drinking, putting into your system. If you don't monitor it, and somebody slips something in somewhere, which I do not believe, but if that's what he's trying to say happened, it's still your fault, you're still guilty, you're still a drugs cheat, and we still have to make an example of it.
As Piers Morgan defended Conor Benn, affirming that the drug allegations stemmed from contaminated eggs, Conor chose to refrain from further discussing the matter, emphasizing that it had already been settled. When Chris Eubank Jr. taunted him about the egg controversy, Conor fired back, calling Chris an idiot and a maniac who would do anything. However, Conor sent a clear warning to Eubank Jr., telling him to be prepared to get chinned when they finally are going to meet in the ring on April 26th. Confident in his intentions, Conor is determined to address Chris's maniacal behavior on fight night.
It's been your position, I think, that you believe it may have come from contaminated eggs. Is that still your position about it? Is that what you think is the...
The case is done. I'm not here to talk about the case at all. It's, you know...
I'm only asking because he hit you with an egg, obviously.
He can do what he wants. He's an idiot. And he's an idiot that's going to get chinned come April 26. Period. Irrelevant of what it was. The stars have aligned for me to render you unconscious.
Their rivalry runs deep, rooted in the long-standing feud between their fathers, and now, with Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn carrying on their respective legacies, the tension between them has only intensified. In the show, Chris shared how, despite his strained relationship with his father, he has succeeded in upholding the Eubank legacy. On the other hand, he criticized Conor Benn for allegedly tarnishing the legacy of his father. Chris even suggested that if Conor Benn was involved in a drug controversy, it could imply that his father, Nigel Benn, might also be a drug addict.
That name is still at the top. It's still relevant. It's still respected. You know, the worst thing Conor's done is put question marks.
Well, let's come to that.
On
I'm going to come
Benn's
to.
name. Let me talk.
Okay.
He's put question marks against the Benn name because, as they say, like father, like son. So if he's capable of cheating, did his father cheat?
I've shown more integrity and resilience.
That's the question that now arises.
You have done your whole career.
That's now the question that arises.
Then you have done your whole career. You're
like
choosing
like
to
son.
fight a welterweight.
I don't believe his father didn't know what he was doing.
Further on, Chris Eubank Jr.'s attitude often comes across as misleading, as he constantly blames and excuses his opponents. Not only did Chris throw an egg at Conor, but he also disrespected Conor's father, Nigel Benn, something Conor found deeply offensive. With a fierce determination and a growing frustration towards Chris's unbothered and unethical behavior, Conor is fully focused on avenging all the slights and actions from Eubank when they meet on fight night. Conor Benn has vowed to deliver a massive beating to Eubank Jr. in the ring.
Actually, was when your dad intervened with the egg throwing and put his arm, I think, on your throat. And at the second press conference, you basically threatened Nigel Benn. Said if he did that again, you deal with him. And
it wasn't a threat, it was a promise.
Oh, it's not a promise, is it?
You can't touch
scumbag.
You can't.
What we did.
You can throw an egg in his face and his father can't.
No,
me and him are fighting.
You're just upset.
Me and you are
Your dad
fighting.
Can't stand you.
I'm
My
not
dad has
upset.
my back. You are. That's all.
I'm not upset.
My dad put.
Me and you are
his
fighting.
hands
Whatever
again.
happens between us.
My dad would put his arms around you again. What are you going to do about it?
No one
What are you
else.
going to do about it? Tell me.
No one else can touch me.
Moving on, Showbiz the Adult shared his reaction after the show ended, expressing how it brought back a flood of memories from the legendary rivalry between their fathers, which has now evolved into the heated situation between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. He reflected on how their feud began and how it has transformed from a boxing rivalry into a spectacle of professional violence. He pointed out that, given the intensity of their history, one thing is certain: this fight between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. is set to break all records. Showbiz expressed his excitement and urged everyone to get ready for an action-packed showdown full of power, thrill, and revenge.
From a boxing fan's point of view from the States. All right, and I'm just going to speak to it personally in the 90s, how it went from my perspective. Because I'm telling you, this whole thing, this born rivalry between the sons, Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, is just everything to me. And it's going to smash records. It's going to break records. It's just humongous, okay, for British boxing fans in the UK. It's just humongous. And it's great. It's huge for me as well.
Amidst this ongoing rivalry, Simon Jordan has voiced his thoughts on this matchup. Jordan believes their fight is generating interest purely because of the legacy of their fathers, who fought twice in 2 classic battles in the 1990s. He said, "I do think it's nothing more than a freak show. I think Chris is a charlatan at world level. I think he doesn't take world title fights when there's an opportunity to do so, and every time he steps up, he gets beat by a world title operator. I think Conor Benn, with all due respect to Conor, and I like his father Nigel and I like Conor, has never explained why drug tests have failed, and boxing shouldn't tolerate that." Calling the fight a circus, Jordan argued that it's nothing more than a money grab for both fighters. He believes the hype surrounding the match exists solely because of their fathers, who he considers the real fighters. As for Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, Jordan feels they are merely puppets, not the true warriors that their fathers once were. He said, "My view is, he's a welterweight stepping up to get paid, and Chris Eubank is coming down to get paid. The only reason this has the lure is because of the deeds of real-world title fighters, which are are their fathers. Simon's statements quickly sparked fury in Eddie, who responded to his claims without hesitation. He dismissed Simon's suggestion that the fight was a buy spot for Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, asserting that there was no reason to view it as a joke. Eddie emphasized that this is a legitimate matchup and reminded Simon that both fighters are top-ranked in their divisions.
I don't know what the circus is and what you're a fool to buy into. It's a really good fight. It's a 50-50 fight between two guys that are world ranked in their division.
Eddie Hearn continued to stress that Simon's view was misguided. He suggested that Simon was under the impression that Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn had never fought before, which Eddie saw as a misunderstanding. He reminded Simon that both fighters have already proven themselves, and what truly matters is the intense rivalry between them. Eddie firmly stated that attempting to manipulate their rivalry for any reason would benefit no one, emphasizing that their feud is venomous and violent, and this fight is about much more than just a payday. It's a real personal battle.
He's making out like neither of them have ever boxed before. They're both useless. It's a mismatch. It's not. It's a 50-50 fight between two world-ranked fighters who, by the way, fathers happen to be Nigel Benn and Chris Eubank, who had the biggest rivalry ever in British boxing, and, by the way, whose sons now have, by far, the biggest rivalry in British boxing. That is venomous, that is violent.
Eddie, clearly frustrated, unleashed his anger on Simon Jordan. He suggested that Simon mocking this matchup stemmed from a deeper issue, that Simon didn't want to see the fight happen in the first place. Eddie accused Simon of manipulating the situation, likening him to a misfit and even calling him a sick person. He argued that Simon's behavior was rooted in jealousy, as he didn't want to see Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn face off in the ring. Despite this, Eddie acknowledged Simon's maturity and understanding of boxing storylines, but urged him to stop acting in such a childish manner.
Simon Jordan is so sick as a parrot that this fight is happening, and both kids are making millions upon millions upon millions upon millions, and he's sick as a dog because he can't handle it. That's the fact. He's not stupid. He understands demand, he understands narrative, he understands storyline, but don't talk about the fight like the couple of misfits, people.
Voicing his frustration, Eddie pointed out that Simon had failed to address the KSI versus Dylan Dennis fight, questioning why he was so focused on criticizing a legitimate matchup while ignoring one that didn't even stand as a championship bout. Eddie suggested that Simon's selective criticism was unfair, highlighting the double standard in his approach. He urged Simon to stop being so miserable and get over his issues, emphasizing that when it came time for the actual fight, it would be Simon who would be begging him for a ticket over the phone. Eddie added that it was almost predictable Simon would want to be part of the event once the spotlight was on it, but for now, he was just causing drama without reason.
Is he moaning about, I don't know, KSI against Dylan Dennis? I mean, what is that? Is that circus? Or is that, an established championship bout? I mean, like, I don't know, you talk about a real boxing match between two world-ranked fighters. Like, and by the way, if the public are fools, there's 65,000 of them, and the public aren't fools, they're just getting ready for what will be a great fight and a brilliant night. So stop being so miserable. And don't worry about it. I mean, he might not, because it might just pain him, but otherwise he'd be phoning up begging for a ticket.
As anticipation for the fight continues to build, Josh Taylor also shared his thoughts. He described the matchup as a highly anticipated one that's been brewing for a long time and predicted it would capture everyone's attention. Taylor went on to express his support for Chris Eubank Jr., citing his greater experience, larger weight class, and history of facing prominent fighters. According to Taylor, these factors could work in Eubank's favor, potentially leading to his victory in the fight.
I think it's a great fight. It's a big fight. It's certainly a big fight. It's been brewing for a few years. It's a big fight. And again, I'm just slightly on Eubank's side, because it's like just the experience and the class that he's been in with. He's only lost to genuine world-class fighters, really. So yeah, I think I'm on Eubank's side. Age might be a little factor.
Further explaining why he favors Eubank Jr., Josh highlighted several key factors. He acknowledged that age might play a role, but emphasized that it wouldn't impact Eubank Jr.'s fighting abilities. Taylor praised Eubank Jr. for living a clean lifestyle, contrasting this with his criticism of Conor Benn, whom he accused of living a life tainted by allegations. He believes these issues have cast doubt on the entire situation. Taylor also expressed his disbelief that Conor Benn was given this opportunity despite his past wrongdoings, calling it a flaw in positioning Benn as a legitimate matchup for Eubank Jr.
I think Eubank lives a clean life, so I think I'm sort of on Eubank's side. Conor Benn's has had his own issues and stuff like that. I think it's quite ridiculous that he's getting this opportunity given what he's been doing and what he got done for and stuff. So I'm on Eubank's side, to be honest.
Voicing a similar opinion, Liam Smith also shared his thoughts on the fight. While he admitted that he's not 100% sold on the speculation surrounding it, he made it clear that he backs Chris Eubank Jr. Smith highlighted Eubank Jr.'s superior fighting skills, particularly noting the size difference between the two. He pointed out that Conor Benn is smaller, whereas Eubank Jr. is significantly bigger. Smith emphasized that Eubank's jab will play a key role in the fight, as his skills with it will allow him to control Benn, keeping him tightly contained and preventing him from finding any room to move around the ring.
I'm not 100% sold on the winner, but I'll probably head towards Chris on points.
Why?
Just size-wise, Conor's small. I think Chris might rob a points win, if that makes sense. I think he'll jab, I think he'll be cagey on. I think that's a style now. You know, he's not the Chris of old where everyone makes out he's fucking loves a fight and ferocious and got this big high work rate. I think he's very cagey, jabs and holds a lot. And I think he won't give Conor a chance in, man.
Echoing his thoughts on the rehydration clause, Liam Smith questioned whether the clause is really that significant in this case. He also pointed out that while Conor Benn may not truly fit into the conditions, fighting Eubank Jr. would certainly provide him with a good payday. Smith criticized Benn for initially discussing the rehydration clause and then backing out, calling it hilarious. He went on to highlight that despite all the drama, Benn is still going to earn a substantial amount of money. At the same time, Smith praised Chris Eubank Jr. for putting in the hard work and for his ability to adjust to weight cuts, a skill he's proven through his past experiences.
Yeah, I think he's starting to struggle because he's starting to mention it a lot now, but yeah, look, he's getting paid a fucking fortune, so if that's the case, you've took the rehydration clause. I think we need to stop really mentioning it. It's £10, by the way, it's not fucking... It's not £6-7, it's £10. I know Chris doesn't put a lot of weight on anyway, whether he's starting to now because he's starting to struggle, but yeah, like I said, he's getting a truckload of money, so.
In addition, Liam Smith also weighed in on the egg slap controversy and the fine Chris Eubank Jr. has received. While many view the incident as a disgusting and disrespectful act, Liam doesn't think it's a big deal, arguing that it was just an egg, not a bottle of water. He also speculated about the fine, questioning where the money from it actually goes. Despite all the controversy, Smith pointed out that these incidents have only added fuel to the fire, increasing the fight's hype and capturing the attention of fans. He sees this as an interesting development, one that ultimately works in favor of building anticipation for the fight.
Yeah, the egg I thought was funny because it was an egg, nothing else. You know, if it was a bottle of water, if it was a tomato, it wouldn't have been funny. It was funny because us in boxing know the story behind the eggs, so I thought it was quite funny how he got the egg in there and, you know, the way it splattered on his face. But the £100,000, I expected it. I know what they're throwing out the board. I just very interested to, you know, £100,000, a lot of money. Where's that going? So fingers crossed it goes to something good, because £100,000 is a lot of money. But I got fined £20,000 for the situation with myself and Chris, which again was crazy. But they're pulling these fines out let's see where the money goes.
The back and forth between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn has sparked massive reactions, with Peter Fury also weighing in on the situation. Sharing his thoughts, Peter expressed his eagerness to watch the fight and acknowledged the rivalry between the two as a genuine one. He also commented on the infamous egg slap. While many saw it as disrespectful, Peter didn't view it that way. He emphasized that the egg slap was simply a necessary ingredient to create the kind of drama needed to ensure a sellout event.
I think there's genuine rivalry there, and there's genuine hatred between them. So that, yeah, anybody would be up for that fight. I'm excited to see that fight. I think the egg thing is, yeah, why not? It's all good. You know, what's an egg? I'm sure Ben's little girl's been hit harder than that. So it doesn't matter. It's just, I think it's all good ingredients. Listen, it's got people talking about it. It sells the fight. Why not? It's innocent promotion. That's what I'm looking at.
As the fight approaches, reports have surfaced about a 9-pound rehydration clause, raising questions about whether Chris Eubank Jr. deserves to fight under such conditions. Given that Eubank is a skilled fighter, some argue that the clause could give Conor Benn an advantage by allowing him to emerge as a more energetic competitor. Peter Fury weighed in on the situation, suggesting that the rehydration clause won't significantly affect Eubank, as he's more than capable of adjusting to weight cuts quickly. He also pointed out that Benn could benefit from the clause, as he hasn't taken as much physical punishment in previous bouts, which could make it easier for him to fight Eubank Jr. this time around.
I don't think it's really going to matter, because when he has the weigh-in at middle, he's then can put 10 pound back on the next morning, and after that, you know, so he's got a good 48 hours of putting that weight back on. And middleweight, you know, yeah, I don't think it's going to trouble Eubanks that much. Ben's going to be stronger for sure, because he's coming up. He hasn't got to tax his body that much, and he'll train very hard because he's got the fuel to do it. So yeah, he's got the advantage coming up. But yeah, I think it evens itself out. I think it's a fair playing field. I'm really looking forward to seeing this fight.
And that wraps up on today's deep dive into the intense rivalry between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. and all the drama surrounding their upcoming fight. From the rehydration clause to the egg slap controversy and everything in between, it's clear that this matchup has sparked heated debates and divided opinions. As we inch closer to the fight, the tension continues to build, and it's safe to say that fans are more than ready for what promises to be a thrilling showdown. Will Eubank's experience and size give him the edge? Or will Benn prove that he's ready to rise above the challenges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on this epic rivalry.